Heat underdogs in Philadelphia Wednesday at 7. Embiid versus Bam and playoff Jimmy versus everybody. Here's a person we think is playoff Jimmy, but I'm not 100% sure. Take a listen.
It's a time where people really got to think about going up against the Miami Heat and myself. Like, I know what I'm capable of. I know what my squad is capable of. And don't nobody want to see us in a 7-game series anyways. We know that.
That was playoff Jimmy. Now
Yeah.
I heard it. Yeah. More faith in Miami or Philly?
This is a weird one because Philly with Embiid this year has been arguably the best team in the league. 31-8. You know, that's a win pace similar to what Boston actually was. And Embiid, since he came back, the box scores look unbelievable. If you watch the games, it's been a little scary at times. There's been injury scares. He seems to be laboring, but he's still scoring 30. Right. And I think Daryl did a great job rounding out the roster. So all of those things say Philly. The problem with that is their playoff history is terrible, and a lot of it is because Joel Embiid has been dinged up either going into the playoffs or during the playoffs. Now he heads into the playoffs again, seemingly not 100%. But the flip side, Brew, is the only reason to believe in Miami is history. Yep. There's nothing they've done at any point this year. You can't point to a single stretch. But you kind of fear them. You know what I mean? And so I think that I think this is going to end up being the 7-8. I think whoever loses this game will beat the Hawks or the Bulls. And I think that's a pain in the ass for the Celtics, whomever they get. My answer is Philly, but history says I'm wrong. But because Embiid's playing at such a high level before the injury and even post-injury, my answer is Philly.
I hope I'm wrong because I do want to see, and I agree with you. I think the loser of this will beat Atlanta or Chicago. But I'd like to see a nice run from Joel Embiid, and I'd like to see him put the playoff misery to bed as far as his individual performances. But I'm going with Miami as far as who I trust more. Miami has been the mentally toughest team in the league for the last 5 years or so. Philly's been arguably, or certainly one of the least mentally tough. Now, I do like Nick Nurse. I think he's a very good
Real fast. The Sixers have completely different players and a completely different coach. So comparing what they did years ago, you say they were weak. You mean when they had players like Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid was like 25 years old, 24 years old. Like, can we pump the brakes on just using the past as an indicator of anything that's about to happen in the future? They didn't have Tyrese Maxey. I mean, so it's just comically absurd to use that as a reference from my viewpoint.
It's been great.
Yeah, and Kelly Oubre's playing really
go.
Yeah, I like Oubre. So on paper, there's every reason to go with Philly. But again, Embiid, we're going to find out. Have his playoff problems been he's a little mentally weak, a la James Harden? Or have they been he's always banged up?
That is such a disgrace. That is such a disgrace to say. I wanted to let more of this clip play before I went on my rant, but I just heard that and my blood is boiling right now. Calling Joel Embiid mentally weak, and he's not saying that he's asking that question. He's like, I'm just asking a question. It's such a disgrace to even throw that out there because Embiid does everything he possibly can to play. He does everything, okay? He goes as hard as he possibly can. And when he gets injured, he still gives it his all. He's torn his meniscus. He's had concussions. He's broken his face, the orbital bone that keeps his eye socket in place, okay? And he still does everything he can. He came back 8 weeks post meniscus surgery and is doing everything he can to try to get them out of the play-in tournament, and then was immediately going hard, immediately, and was still hitting the deck. I couldn't believe when I was watching these games, I'm screaming like, Joel, what are you doing? Take it easy. Why are you hitting the deck right now? Why are you going for that loose ball? Just let it go. Who cares? So this idea that he's mentally weak or can't handle the moment is just, he has proven to be so strong. He's had bad luck. Also, some of it is, as someone pointed out before, that, in the comments, that he doesn't take care of himself in the way of, minimizing injury risk. Although all of his injuries were not because of that. So he can't control getting someone hitting him in the face. That has nothing to do with it. People love to say, "Oh, he gets injured flopping." That actually may be the dumbest take ever. Because if you ever see how he's gotten injured, none of it has to do with flopping. Not to mention, he hits the deck a lot on some of these plays because that's what he was taught to do. That's what he was taught to do to avoid injuries, that you let yourself go and hit the ground and go, because it's when you stop yourself, and if you're really athletic, then you can end up hurting yourself. That's actually how I tore my meniscus, actually all 3 times, mainly because I'm, pretty athletic, very athletic. Don't mean to brag, but, and I was able, especially the 2 times I tore playing basketball, is I was jumping up, going for a rebound, and I'm able in the air to contort my body and really, almost kind of like a ballerina type of play. And I'm able to like kind of still get the ball, do what I need to do. And then I land in a way that's not always the best way to land. And the 3rd time I tore my meniscus, kayaking. And, I was on the boat with my nephew, and he capsized the boat because he dropped his Mickey Mouse hat in the water and reached out to get it. And my big dumb sister-in-law, turned around real fast and screamed his name. And because of that, the boat went over. And I didn't go under. They both completely went under. But again, my reflexes, and I'm not acting like I'm like some superior, NBA or NFL athlete here, but I do have, definitely better than your average person. I played sports at a pretty high level, and I stayed above water. I was able to quickly contort my body. And again, I don't even really know how I did it, but when I explained it to the one doctor, he's like, I was like, my hair didn't even get wet. Literally, I was able to just kind of like, look like I was in the Matrix, and I stayed above but because of that, I put my knee in an awkward position and tore my meniscus. If I just went under, I wouldn't have torn my meniscus. So that's why they're teaching Embiid and some of these other injury-prone players to just fall, hit the ground, to go with, the momentum rather than fight your momentum. Because that's what ends up happening. Like the earlier example of when I was kind of jumping, like when I said like a ballerina-esque, if I just allowed my body to kind of go naturally with wherever my momentum was taking me, I would have then probably fallen and rolled to the ground. But instead, I was trying to keep my balance, keep the ball alive, be aggressive, do whatever. And so now I'm like landing on one foot in this like weird, bizarre position. And then, your knee, all it does is have to buckle the slightest bit because the meniscus is paper thin. And then boom, that's what happens. So that's why, what happens with Embiid. I concede that Embiid absolutely has to, work better for in game of not going for some of these risky plays. But in terms of his heart, guys, we have players like AD who sit out because he has a splinter. So to call out Embiid, I take issue with that. I really, really do, because we are talking about players. That's such the big thing, is that these players don't want to play and they want to rest and this or that. And you have someone like Embiid who fights through every single injury. Okay, that is why he has not been playing well in the playoffs. And to challenge his heart is just, to me, disgraceful. So I absolutely, positively have faith in the Sixers. I mean, this is how old school this is. This is an actual Allen Iverson, a little hard to see, an actual Allen Iverson jersey, back when they were wearing these black jerseys. This is old, man. This is old. I actually, funny story, I wanted a Kyle Korver jersey, and I begged my parents to get it for me, and they wouldn't get it for me because they said, they didn't think Kyle Korver was going to end up really playing with the Sixers for long, and this is when he was a rookie, and they didn't think that he would last for the Sixers and really end up being anything in the NBA in general. And look what happened to Kyle Korver. But I'm pretty happy with the Iverson jersey. It's more timeless. But yeah, so that's what I think. Obviously, I'm coming from a more biased lens as one of the commenters who thinks that I am a Philly homer. But anyone who's been watching this channel long enough knows that I have pushed back on Philadelphia teams, ripped the Eagles and all of that. And for those of you who don't know, Philly fans, man, we hold these teams to a very high level. We do not let them get away with any excuses, and we want their head on a spike if they're not playing well or if something bad happens. So my faith in Philly has always been predicated on Joel Embiid staying healthy. And as someone who has been injured so many times and also prided himself in being a warrior and doing everything he could to play, even if injured, this whole idea of like, well, if you're on the court, you're on the court. It's just nonsense. That's just nonsense coach speak. And that's nonsense that, ex-players say, and then, media parrots it and everyone's banged up. And yes, you're right. Everyone's banged up, but not all at the same levels. Not everyone has a torn meniscus or, a bad shoulder or, whatever. It's all degrees. LeBron James was more banged up last playoffs than say, I don't know, and Jokic. Okay, I mean, that's just a reality. So not everything is equal footing. And I think as long as Joel Embiid stays healthy, and it is a big if, like in terms of the faith, I don't know if I have faith that Embiid stays healthy throughout the whole playoff run. I really hope so, obviously. But I really genuinely don't know. If you've watched those last few games that he's played, he's like, he even had to go back in the locker room for a minute because like his knee kind of buckled on him, which is to be expected. Like my knee is still does that. And granted, it's 3 surgeries deep, but it just is what it is. And it always feels like you hurt it, or that there was like, oh my God, I retore it or this or that. But it's not. You just kind of like trigger some soreness and inflammatory response. It's the scar tissue and it starts to swell. And also, every time you work a little bit harder than what you've already built up to, you get the pain, soreness, and swelling. And so, again, to make it real simple, if you're recovering from your knee surgery and the most you ever ran was 10 minutes, if you keep running for 10 minutes, your knee should probably pretty good. But the moment you take it to 11 minutes, you're now pushing beyond what your repair has done. And so now you're going to get some soreness, stiffness, pain, swelling, but it doesn't mean that you re-injured it. It's just kind of the process of you, getting stronger and stronger and stronger and fully recovering. And you're also laying down the pattern of the scar tissue. It's not always super linear or straightforward. But at this point, I'm sure, Joel, with all his injuries, is pretty aware of the ups and downs that this process has. But in terms of a 1-game play-in, let's go, Joel Embiid will probably hold nothing back because that's the type of player that he is. That is what I'm expecting. I don't have much more to say because I feel like I kind of emptied my rant right there, but I am curious to see what else they have to say.
I think we're gonna find out because he might be banged up right now.
Right, yeah. I don't know that we're gonna find that out.
He could get banged. Well, even before Doc, I think there was some issue. He could get banged up at any point.
More issues when they have a coach that's not even coaching anymore in the NBA. Let me know how that works out for all these other past great players. Whether or not they have actual legitimate coaches. And he was like 23, 24 years old. None of these stars are winning at that young of an age, and his running mate was Ben Simmons.
But you don't think he's already banged up?
No, I'm hoping not.
You think he's?
But he left one of the games.
Hurt back.
He did come back.
Hurt again?
He left one game early, but came back and finished it.
I just don't think he's 100%.
And that's the problem. He's never 100%.
I don't know that my general feeling on coming back from injuries is, if you were not a professional athlete and you had suffered the knee injury that Joel Embiid suffered, would your doctor say in part of the path to being back at full strength is playing big-time basketball games? Probably not. So I don't think the injury is going to get – maybe, again, I'm obviously not a doctor.
Okay, but like I just said, I played this. Yes, that is part of the process of recovering, is playing. I don't know if you could say that he would want you would want to do it necessarily 8 weeks out. That I can concede, but it wouldn't be significantly longer. You start to push it. That's the only way you recover, is by pushing it and then getting back out there and being on the court. So this isn't like as risky that people potentially think it is. The only way this meniscus can tear again is not because the repair is like fragile or not fully healed. The only way it could tear again is if you're in a compromised state. What I'm trying to say is the only way that it could tear again is if he does something that would have tore it, whether or not it was a brand new meniscus. Okay? Because it has healed. The injury itself has absolutely healed. Okay? It's together. It's like you have a scar there. If you cut yourself, you have a scar there, but it's healed. And the only way that you can now rip that scar open is no different than whether it was the scar or brand new skin up here, regular skin up here that didn't, that wasn't cut. So that's why the risk of him re-injuring it is not there outside of him just tearing his meniscus again, just in general. The only true extra risk that there is that if his muscles are not fully recovered and he now lacks some of the stability, which then puts his knee in that it's more likely for his knee to be in a compromised state, which then allows him more likely, right? It allows it now to buckle in or buckle out or, whatever, which then increases the chances of an injury. Like when you see a non-contact injury, it's usually because like the knee gives out or it's just, one of those types of things. So technically that is really where all the increased risk comes from. But within 8 weeks, now it'll be 9, 10, going on 11. Much of that muscle instability, he should be near, I don't want to say 100%, but like very high up there.
It worries me. But he has been, Nikola Jokic aside, he's been the most dominant player in basketball for 2 years.
He was the
now.
best player in the league early on
Yes.
before he got hurt. He was playing like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Philadelphia, their mentality must be, you know what? Who knows when he's going to be healthy? So if he can play, just play.
Yeah.
Instead of saving him for
30-7 when Maxey and Embiid play.
30-7 when Maxey and Embiid play. They are for real. They just need to stay healthy, and they will do damage. Again, I'm sure we'll talk about it more in depth tomorrow, or I guess maybe when you're watching this video, maybe today. Probably by the time you watch this video, it'll be today. So be on the lookout for more in-depth videos on the Sixers versus the Heat. But we're at the point right now where there's a lot of repetition because we're just like waiting for these things to happen. And so it's like, we're just gonna be like, what's gonna happen with Miami? What's gonna happen with Philly? But yeah, I really think as long as Philly and Embiid stays healthy and all that, they can truly make a run. The Knicks don't scare me. The Cavaliers, Magic. None of those teams scare me in a 7-game series. I think the Celtics will be a very competitive series, and that to me, I am confident in the claim that if everyone is healthy, and I know I keep saying that, it's probably annoying, but if everyone is healthy, I do actually have the Sixers. But if Embiid is playing kind of, a little, if he's a little run down and clearly not himself or whatnot, then I think the Celtics can steamroll the Sixers. And that is unfortunately just the reality of a player like Joel Embiid, which sucks because we're being robbed of pretty exciting basketball. But those are just my thoughts. I would absolutely love to hear yours. Do you have more faith in Miami or Philly? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment. So whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I would absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be part of, and I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. It really does help with the visibility in the algorithm, and it also helps combat all the trolls and the haters. Thank you so much, and see you next time.